We were part of a pilot program for counseling debt for students, and we're anxious to hear how that went. So welcome to the committee. And please identify yourself and then begin.
Thank you, Chair Narnes. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Kate Rissevy. I'm the Senior Director of Financial Services at Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota. For 150 years, LSS has been providing services to people with disabilities, older adults, children, youth, and families. More than 2,300 LSS employees and volunteers provide services in 300 communities statewide and in all 87 counties. LSS began offering budget and debt counseling in 1987 and is the largest nonprofit provider of financial counseling and financial education in Minnesota, providing budget, debt, credit counseling, foreclosure prevention, debt management plans to more than 10,000 families annually. LSS Financial Counseling has 11 service sites in Minnesota, 1 in Wisconsin, and serves clients in all 50 states through phone and internet-based services. All LSS counselors are certified by the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. In 2012, LSS Financial Counseling was selected for a grant from the Center for Excellence in Financial Counseling at the University of Missouri. During the pilot period of 2013-2014, LSS Financial Counseling served 558 clients for student loan repayment counseling at several Minnesota colleges. Based on the significant demand for this service and the outcome achieved, in May 2015, the Minnesota State Legislature created a 2-year pilot to serve Minnesotans struggling with student loan payments. LSS was selected through a competitive request for proposals process and finalized the contract with the Minnesota Office of Higher Education on October 15, 2015. Today I will review how the program works and the outcomes to date. Borrowers are referred to the service by financial aid offices at campuses, credit unions or banks, family and friends of people served, or through other outreach. Borrowers meet in person or over the phone with a certified financial counselor who's received intensive training in both the technical aspects of distressed student loans and behavior change counseling techniques. The initial session is scheduled for 1.5 hours with a 1-hour follow-up session if needed. Counseling is provided to borrowers regarding their complete financial situation, pulling credit reports, deep budgeting, addressing all income expenses and debts, including housing and credit card debt, as well as understanding all federal, state, and private student loans owed by the borrower and the repayment options available to them. These are sometimes complex and nuanced situations and options. Then an action plan is developed that includes sustainable changes in financial practices that prioritizes student loan repayment. As a result of the legislation passed in 2015, 981 borrowers were served between October 15th, 2015 and November 30th, 2016 from 60 counties in Minnesota. 590 of the 594 who came in as current on their student loans were able to remain current on their loans with counseling. 193 of the 387 delinquent borrowers brought over $9 million of student loans into good standing with counseling. So that means that 50% of the borrowers who came in with delinquent student loans are back on track and current with their student loans. 97% developed a monthly budget plan. 86% feel more confident regarding their repayment options. And 80% say payments are more affordable a year after implementing the changes that were made with the counseling. The report you have received provides additional information about the content of counseling selection sessions, and metrics we use to evaluate. One learning from the pilot, there was a barrier for some borrowers that the original pilot limited access to those who attended a Minnesota institution. 114 Minnesota residents who sought counseling attended schools in nearby states. We did, and the most common frequent state was Wisconsin, that they attended schools. We did serve those, we just were not able to use the appropriation for that service. I'd like to share one example of someone with a complex situation who benefited from student loan repayment counseling. This is also included in one of the examples in the report. Heather, and the name has been changed to protect confidentiality, is a 36-year-old from Crookston, is going through a divorce. The mortgage is in her husband's name only, and he's not paying child support. Heather is working with an LSS housing counselor on this issue. She recently received notice that her wages will be garnished for her student loans. Heather is working with a financial counselor to request a hearing to prevent the garnishment, consolidate the student loans, and put them into an income-driven repayment plan, which will keep them in good standing and allow her to avoid public assistance and provide stability for her 3 children. Based on the need we have seen throughout the state and the successful track record we have had in getting borrowers back on track, we hope the legislature will continue to support this model. By providing borrowers with the information needed, we can prevent student loan debt from inhibiting the growth of Minnesota's economy and derailing the borrower's life goals for which they sought higher education in the first place. We would like to thank Representative Haley for authoring a bill this session which would provide continued funding for this service. Thank you also to the many other members who have signed on as co-authors. We hope to have the opportunity to testify on that bill in the near future. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the benefits of this service today.
Thank you very much. Did you have something you want to add? Again, identify yourself.
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman. My name is Tricia Grimes, and I'm a volunteer with Lutheran Social Service. Just one short minute with a little background on me. Years ago, I was a nonpartisan legislative fiscal analyst working on higher education at the Minnesota legislature, like Ken Savory is now. I then worked for many years excuse me, at the State Office of Higher Education, and I finished my career as the legislative liaison there. Then 2 years ago, I retired. Now, one of the other areas of responsibility I had at the Office of Higher Education was student loan issues. And one of the things that frustrated me greatly was the number of Minnesota borrowers who would default on their federal student loans when nearly all of those defaults could have been prevented if the borrowers had just understood what their options were. The federal government, since 2007, has offered a repayment plan called income-based repayment, where it's a percentage of their income. And so if the borrower's income is very low, their payments are very low. Surprising number of borrowers do not know about this option. Borrowers who are delinquent in repaying their student loans have their credit scores drop by 100 points or more, according to the credit rating agencies. An average credit score for Minnesota is about 720. If your credit score drops down to 620 because you're late in paying your student loans, and this is just late, this is not in default, you can have a hard time getting a car loan, renting an apartment, sometimes even getting a job. Default is when a borrower doesn't pay on their student loans for 9 months or more, and a default is more than 100 points on the credit score. In Minnesota, for the latest year for which there is data, 14,000 Minnesota borrowers defaulted on their student loans. And as I said, most of those could have been prevented if they'd been on an income-based repayment plan. Another thing that the student loan counseling helps with is borrowers who did already default on their loan, and they're having trouble with their credit, and they assume that there's nothing they can do about their defaulted loan. In fact, they can rehabilitate their defaulted loans. They can get on an income-based repayment plan and pay for 9 to 12 months, and then their credit score starts to reflect the fact that they are in the process of rehabilitating that loan, and it starts to have much less impact on their credit. So this is my volunteer priority. When I was retiring and I learned that Lutheran Social Service, with its excellent certified credit counselors, was offering student loan counseling, I called them up and asked them if they would like me to volunteer to help with this effort, because I think it's so important. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and we'd be happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you very much. I think you covered it, but you're not reducing, or, I mean, the debt is there, and it's just finding a way to pay for it. Is that correct? Yeah.
Chair Nornis, yes, that is correct. This isn't a loan forgiveness program. This is just helping the borrowers understand in their situation what repayment options are available to them. So it's looking at all of that.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, if I could just
Ms. Grimes?
clarify one thing. We did receive an appropriation of $150,000 a year in the 2015 legislature. That was one-time funding, and so the bill will seek continuation of the funding.
Okay, thank you. Representative Pryor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You noted that there's barriers for some people to participate in the program. Were you able to serve everybody that came in and wanted your services?
Chair Nornis,
I need you to pronounce your name again, I'm not sure.
Kate
Last name?
Rissavi.
Brissett, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Nornis, Representative. We did not screen out someone who wasn't eligible under this because a lot of times we didn't know what school that they came in for until they were meeting with the counselor. And it's as part of our mission, we also provided that service, but we're not able to use the appropriation. So we did serve people who came in and didn't turn them away because they didn't go to school in Minnesota.
Representative Pryor.
And just to be clear, though, that so that I'm understanding that you didn't have to turn anybody away because you ran out of money and didn't have enough people power to counsel everybody, that everybody that knew about the program that came to you was able to get the help that they were seeking.
Go ahead.
Chair and Representative, that is correct. At this time, during this pilot period, we didn't turn anybody away for that.
Representative Lane, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a question, but more just a comment. I guess I just appreciate the work that you all are doing. Before I was elected, was working with a nonprofit credit counseling organization, and it wasn't Lutheran Social Services, but, we were often trying to find ways how we could get onto college campuses or even get into high schools and talk with seniors about this type of thing, not even just with the debt, helping manage debt, but more so the monthly budgets and cash management and getting ahead of it. So, I'm glad to see this is continuing to go forward. So thanks for your work. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Did a good job.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here and good luck as we move forward. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you, Chair.